Early in 2016, Voice of America lost one of its own. Freelance journalist Amigdad Mojali had been reporting on the humanitarian impact of the war in Yemen for 3 months with VOA when he was killed, on assignment, during a Saudi-led air raid. Mojali is one of 48 journalists killed throughout the year, either murdered, caught in crossfire or combat, or on dangerous assignment, according to newly released data by the Committee to Protect Journalists. While the overall number is a decline from previous years, Courtney Ratch, advocacy director for CPJ, told VOA via Skype that the reasons are not entirely clear.
One thing that you might extrapolate is that in certain conflicts, it has gotten so incredibly dangerous for journalists that there are simply fewer people doing journalism.
Particularly in war-ravaged zones across the Middle East. More than half of those killed were on assignment in Syria, Yemen, or Iraq. Syria alone, the world's deadliest country for the 5th consecutive year, accounted for 14 deaths. But even in places where journalists are less likely to be singled out for murder, various forms of censorship or intimidation are prevalent, like Turkey, which accounts for nearly 1/3 of the world's imprisoned journalists, according to CPJ.
We see that conflict zones continue to be very deadly and dangerous for journalists, but we also see this repression happening, trying to silence critical voices by putting them in prison, cracking down on what they're saying and allowed to say on social media.
Journalism professor Steve Raymer explains via Skype that governments have found ways of censoring journalists that are less difficult, including Russia.
There hasn't been a murder of a journalist in Russia since 2013, according to this report, but Russia has enacted so much more legislation to silence journalists and silence critical voices that they don't need to kill people, that they don't need to murder journalists.
CPJ found that approximately 9 out of 10 journalists killed were local, not foreign, a statistic in line with historical trends. Political groups, among them Islamist militant organizations, were found responsible for more than half of all killings in 2016. RamonTaylor, VOA News, New York.